Hello, everybody. We are trying this again because I did this earlier and it didn't record. So we're trying. And this is the third in our Genocide in Gaza series. So thank you for joining. It will be on YouTube in a little bit because I didn't invite anybody to this one. And we will make sure you can see it. So, we're going to talk about the history in Gaza first. Then, we're going to talk about what's going on right now and what you can do to help stop this genocide. So, let's take a look at what's going on, right, or the history that got us there. So, again, thank you. Please, um, please subscribe on YouTube. Say you like it. Let me know what I can do differently and help us. So, so just a look at the pictures of what's impacted. So we have the Gaza Strip, and we have where the Israeli settlements are that aren't even supposed to be there. And then we have some pictures of how it got started and what's going on today. So the conflict between Israel and Palestine has been going on for a long, long time. It goes back over a century, and really, it started because in um, in nine in after the First World War, Britain decided that it wanted to create a colony for the Israelis, and they took control of the area known as Palestine after the defeat of the Ottoman Emperor, and so many um, Jewish people came to the Middle East. Um, there was still an Arab majority and a Jewish minority. Tensions between the Jewish and the Arabs rose quite a bit. Jews had historical links to the land, but Palestine and other Arabs also claimed this area for centuries. Between the 1920s and the 1940s, the number of Jews grew because of what was going on in Europe. In 1947, after the Holocaust and World War II ended, um, against the backdrop of growing violence between the Jews and Arabs and the British rule, the United Nations voted for Palestine to be split into separate Jewish and Arab states. Jerusalem would become an international city. No Arab nation supported this. They argued the plan gave Jews more of land, even though the population was smaller. Britain abstained, and it decided to withdraw and to hand the problem to the UN. So that happened May 14th, 1948. Jewish leaders in Palestine declared an independent state known as Israel hours before the British rule ended. So what was 1948 Arab-Israel War? The day after Israel declared independence, it was attacked and surrounded by Arabs from five nations. The conflict came to be known in Israel as the War of Independence. Um, a Haganah, the Jewish underground fighter, just before um, the start of the Israel War for Independence. But by the time the fighting ended with an armistice in 1949, Israel controlled most of the territory. Agreements left Egypt occupying the Gaza Strip, Jordan occupying the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Israel occupying West Jerusalem. About 750,000 Palestinians fled or were forced from their homes on land which became Israel and ended up as refugees. That event is known in Arabic as Nakba, catastrophe. Arab Legion soldiers in the years that followed, hundreds of thousands of Jews left or were expelled from the Muslim majority countries across the Middle East and North Africa. What was the 1967 war, which we've heard a lot about? What is known as the Six-Day War changed the boundaries in the Middle East and major consequences in Palestine. The war saw Israel fight Egypt, Syria, and Jordan. It was started when Israel, fearing an attack by Egypt and Syria, launched a strike on Egypt's Air Force. By the time the fighting ended, Israel had captured the Sinai Peninsula in Gaza from Egypt, most of Golan Heights from Syria, and East Jerusalem and West Bank from Jordan. About 1 million Palestinians in the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem came under Israel's control. Their military commanders arrived in East Jerusalem during the Six-Day War of 67. Israel occupation of these areas has lasted until this day. Israel signed a peace treaty with Egypt in 1979 and returned to the Sinai. The West Bank, lying between Israel and the River Jordan, is home to an estimated 3 million Palestinians. Along the East Jerusalem and Gaza is part widely known as the occupied Palestinian territories. The Palestinians always opposed Israel's presence in these areas. Israel still overall controls the West Bank, but since the 1990s, a Palestinian government known as the Palestinian Authority has run most of the towns and cities. There are about 160 Israeli settlements housing about 700,000 Jews in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. Palestinian wants all Israel settlements to be removed, and they are considered illegal under international law, which is something I didn't know. So that was something I learned. However, Israel's government disputes this. It says the biggest settlements, at the very least, are permanent and that all settlements are rooted in historical rights. It does not recognize the rights of the Palestinians to have their own state and argue that all the West Bank is part of Israel, which I am very pro and have always been pro a two-state solution. The Israel government announced plans to expand these settlements, and Netanyahu is doing that. So that brings us up to October 7th, 2023, when Hamas did attack Israel. They killed over 2,200 Jewish people in the settlements, and So that is how it all started. And they still, there are still hostages there. So then in Gaza, there are 2.1 million, or there were before Israel started its war on Gaza. The UN still regards Gaza as Israel occupied territory because of the Israeli control. Hamas won Palestine elections in 2006 and ejected its rivals from the territory after intense fighting. Israel and Egypt imposed a blockade in response, with Israel controlling most of what was allowed into the territory. And we know that still goes on to this day. So there's been fights up until, the war in 2023. So there were fights in 2008 and 9, 12, 14, and a major conflict in 2021. Even every round of fighting has seen people killed in both sides. The vast majority have been Palestinian in Gaza. So then October 7th happened, and killing 1,200 people in Israel and 251 hostages. Supposedly, over 61,000 people have been killed, with mostly being women and children, but the estimate is closer to 150,000. And Israel has targeted hospitals and civilians and told people to move here and then bomb where they moved. And it's been outrageous what they've done. So the world has gone from being pro-Israeli to more pro-Palestinian because of everything that's been going on. And the state of Palestine is currently recognized by 147 of the UN's 193 members. So a lot of uh, our allies have joined and supported the Palestinians. Unfortunately, we have not. So, some current pictures of what's going on and what Israel is doing to Palestine right now. The starving children. They estimate that over 150, mostly babies have died of hunger and famine. So that is what Netanyahu, with support from us, is doing. So, what is the current life like during this horrible conflict? A starved Gaza is not collateral damage, it's Netanyahu's policy. Israel's war arms go beyond defeat of Hamas to the total collective punishment of more than 2 million Palestinians. And they're starving them. They're committing genocide. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. They're refusing to allow aid in. What should take a couple of hours to scan a truck is not happening. They're allowing people to fight over food because they're starving them. And at, even Netanyahu's predecessors have been vocal in their condemnation of what's going on. But it's all part of his plan. He wants to, give Trump his little beachfront property and resort. The punishment has been meted out to 2 million strong civilian population, most of whom would be against governance of Gaza by Hamas if they were allowed to speak freely. So he's denying bread and water is no mere symptom of the conflict, it's the crime. So these are the evil ones. Hamas is not good, but these people are evil. The world needs to recognize a two-state solution. The world needs to take action against Netanyahu. He's a war criminal. He's been convicted by the court in The Hague of being a war criminal. U.S. Senate and House need to stop arming Israel until they end the conflict. Israel needs to allow the rest of the world to start bringing food into Gaza. I mean, the doctors are starving. Please like on YouTube. Please subscribe. Please share. So and then there's my product, but we'll look at that in a little bit. Let me get out of that. And I have some videos. So hold on for a second while I bring up the videos.
"19 people in Gaza since dawn on Saturday. 17 of them in strikes on tents sheltering families in Khan Yunis in the south of the Strip." We're going to go to Hani Mahmoud in Gaza City. Hani, you and our teams there have been in Gaza City watching this unfold. There are other parts of Gaza where a famine could officially be called soon.
Rob, this has been predictable, but at the same time, it's preventable if crossings and borders are open. But what we're seeing is a really deliberate blockade on the crossings, preventing much needed aid and food supplies, let alone medical supplies, into the hospitals. What we're seeing here, it's not something that come as a surprise to people. It's a reality. People have been living this and enduring this for the past 22 months. From the opening weeks of this genocide, it was projected, it was certain that we are moving toward this end. It just the report just confirmed what people have been talking about, what we have documented over the past 22 months, and what have people been experiencing day in and day out, with acute shortage of basic supplies in terms of food supplies and other basic necessities, survival necessities that otherwise are protected under international law and should have been secured. The delivery of these survival items and much needed supplies secured, delivery secured for people in a war zone, let alone in a genocide, let alone also hospital. They are lacking basic supplies. We're talking about basic as bandages, gauze, as well as the painkillers. They're not available in an amount that is sufficient to respond properly to the mass casualties that keep pouring into the hospital. So for a lot of people here, that was not a surprise at all. It's not even a breaking news for the majority of them, because they have lived it, they experienced it, they are still indeed experiencing this unfolding famine across the Strip. While there is a media buzz about a couple hundred trucks in the past 2 or 3 weeks been allowed into the Gaza Strip, the vast majority of these trucks were commercial trucks. They're not carrying basic supplies that could be used to make up for the lack of food over the past 22 months. They're carrying supplies that are rather complementary and lacking major sufficient items that are needed to make up for the lack of food. Because at this point now, it's exploding. We've passed the tipping point. We're seeing at least on daily basis, at least 2 or 4 cases documented dying because of acute malnutrition among the children, among elderly, among those who are struggling to survive and recover from their wounds as a result of the ongoing bombardment.
And Hani, we were just mentioning the 17 Israeli strikes on tents sheltering families in Khan Yunis in the south of the Strip. We know there have been strikes elsewhere as well. Just talk us through what's been happening over the last few hours.
Well, the attacks did not stop, even when we have a report confirming an explosive famine everywhere. The attacks continue to happen, continue to target people, causing further civilian casualties, enforced displacement as more people are leaving areas that have been subjected to relentless attacks, as well as the sheer level of destruction that is now destroying absolutely all means of life. People are left without anything to support their existence, to support them survive these conditions, including Al-Mawasi evacuation zone, an area that has become notorious now for how many times it has been attacked. And Mawasi zone, just to remind our viewers, people were told literally they need to evacuate to this area in order to avoid being bombed in their neighborhoods and in the cities, only to get bombed, maimed, and killed inside this area. And what does that have on people? It has this psychological collapse. There is a constant fear that there is no safety at all, and it just erodes any sense of safety left for people after 22 months, leaving their homes now. It's far more dangerous, far more riskier than staying, than going to these areas, because they know they're going to die. And we have many of the documented cases of people being killed within just days or hours of their arrival to particular areas like Al-Mawasi evacuation zone. 19 people of the 19, 17 died in Al-Mawasi evacuation zone. That include women and its children and elderly. They were killed in their sleep. The attack happened as early as 4 a.m. in the morning. People were still sleeping inside their tents when the attack happens, let alone the damage that is caused to surrounding areas, pushing people into further internal enforced displacement. Meanwhile, the attack continued to happen in Zaytun. More homes, more clusters of residential buildings are destroyed, as well as unfolding in the northern part of the Strip. People are attacked and killed on their way to get food or to get water from the water tanks in the area.
Hani, thank you very much indeed. Hani Mahmoud there in Gaza City.
In a world where the news never ends, understanding what's behind.
So, that was one, story. I also would highly recommend that if you have not already done this, I would go on Kyle Kaczynski. He does a lot of great videos about the conflict. I don't agree with all of his opinions, but I think he does a great job talking about the Israeli conflicts. So there's also Al Jazeera does a wonderful job, and there's also and we'll look at that one now. I'm sorry, it's not coming up. I don't know why. Well, go to Al Jazeera And yesterday, 63 people were killed in Gaza City. So it's important to take a look at that. Also, put in Kyle Kaczynski um, in YouTube, and he has a lot of good videos. So there's also a video with ABC did a video with the senator that's currently in Jordan, seeing what's going on. It's bipartisan, so that's really good. So I'm going to share again. I just want you to make sure you know what my products are. So, so please take a look. And go to Spreadshirt. .com and put in pretzel tells nuggets. So a lot of good stuff out there. Pink for girls. I have onesies for babies. So all with good looking pretzels on them. So I want to say thank you for everybody for joining today. And it's important that we get the word out there. So what you can do is write to your senator, write to your rep, write to Congress. Send messages out. Support Doctors Without Borders because they are helping, and do what you can, but give voice, and let's fight. We'll be doing this. I'm also going to be doing a series on Ukraine. I'm reaching out to friends of mine in Ukraine to see if I can get them to talk and join us. And I would really like to so if anybody knows economists that either teach or work in finance, I'm really looking for economists to join me and get a panel together to talk about our economy. So I appreciate all your help. Thank you. When you see this on YouTube, please subscribe and please say you like it. Or if you don't, put a comment in and tell me why. I appreciate it. Thank you. Just have to figure out how to stop it. So thank you. Goodbye, everybody. Have a great day.